Daewon woke up slowly. Everything was white. White walls. White ceiling. White sheets on his bed. For a confused moment, he thought he was still in the storm, surrounded by snow. Then his vision cleared. He was in a medical room. Warm. Safe. He could hear the soft beeping of monitors nearby. His body ached, but it was the ache of healing, not freezing. He tried to sit up, but his muscles wouldn't cooperate properly. "Easy there," a voice said. A doctor appeared beside his bed. She was human, which surprised him. "You've been out for 2 weeks. Your body needs time to recover." 2 weeks? Daewon's voice came out rough and scratchy. "You had severe hypothermia, frostbite on your hands and feet, and complete exhaustion," the doctor explained. "Your core temperature was so low when we found you, we weren't sure you'd make it. You're lucky to be alive." Daewon didn't feel lucky. He felt confused. "The cubs? Are they okay?" The doctor smiled. "They're fine. Healthy and completely recovered. They've been asking about you every day." Relief flooded through him. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the news sink in. They were safe. That was all that mattered. "Can I see them?" he asked. "Tomorrow," the doctor said. "Today you rest." Doctor's orders, but Daewon couldn't rest. His mind was full of questions. How did the rescue ships find them? How did they land in that storm? What happened to the station? A nurse brought him food. Real food. Not the processed survival rations he'd been making for the cubs. He ate slowly, still not quite believing he was safe. Over the next day, doctors and officials came to talk to him. They asked him questions about what happened at the station, how he survived, what decisions he made. Daewon answered as best he could, but he didn't think his actions were particularly special. He had just done what needed to be done. The officials seemed to think differently. They looked at him strangely, like he was some kind of puzzle they couldn't solve. On the second day, they finally let him have visitors. The cubs came in first, followed by their parents. Taeyang ran straight to Daewon's bed and hugged him carefully. Hyrim was right behind him, crying happy tears. Bora stood back a little, trying to be mature, but her eyes were wet too. "Uncle Daewon," Taeyang said. "You're awake." "I am," Daewon said, hugging the small cub back. "How are you all doing?" "We're good," Hyrim said. "They gave us lots of food and warm places to sleep. But we wanted you to wake up. I'm sorry I took so long." The cub's parents approached slowly. They looked at Daewon with expressions he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, yes, but also confusion, maybe even fear. Bora's mother spoke first. She was a tall Catharian with dark blue scales. "Researcher Daewon, our families owe you a debt we can never repay. You saved our children's lives." "I just did what anyone would do," Daewon said. "No," she said firmly. "You did what no one else would do. You stayed when everyone else left. You gave up your own safety to protect children that weren't yours, weren't even your species." Hyrim and Taeyang's father, a large Vryn with silver fur, nodded. "We have studied human behavior since the rescue. We wanted to understand what you did. It's not normal. Not by galactic standards." Daewon was confused. "What do you mean?" "Most species protect their own," Bora's mother explained. "Family first, tribe second, allies third. But humans," she paused, searching for words. "Humans adopt. You bond with anyone who needs help. You extend your protection to strangers, to aliens. This is almost unique in the galaxy." "We're still trying to understand it," Taeyang's father added. "Our psychologists call it pack bonding. Humans form emotional attachments very easily. Once you decide someone is yours to protect, you'll sacrifice everything for them." Daewon thought about this. He'd never considered it strange before. Helping people in trouble just seemed like the right thing to do. "I don't know if it's that complicated," he said. "The cubs needed help. I was there, so I helped. But you nearly died," Bora's mother said. "You gave them your clothing, your warmth, everything you had. Why?" How could he explain something that felt so natural? Because they were children. They were scared. Someone had to take care of them. "But why you?" she pressed. "You could have tried to save only yourself, increased your own chances of survival. This would be the logical choice." Daewon looked at the 3 cubs standing beside his bed. Taeyang held his returned stuffed animal. Hyrim smiled at him with absolute trust. Bora watched him with her clever, thoughtful eyes. "Logic isn't everything," Daewon said. "Sometimes you just do what feels right." "And leaving kids alone in a storm? That's not right. That's not what humans do." The parents looked at each other. They still didn't fully understand, but they accepted his answer. However you explain it, Bora's mother said. You gave us our children back. For this we want to honor you. She held out a small crystal object. It was beautiful, with colors swirling inside it. This is a family bond marker from our culture, she explained. We give it only to those we consider family. You are not Catharian, but you are now part of our family. Always. Daewon accepted the crystal carefully. He didn't know what to say. Hiram's father presented him with a silver medallion. This is a Vryn protection token. It means you are under our family's protection forever. Anywhere you go, if you show this, our people will help you. Thank you, Daewon managed to say. I don't know if I deserve this. You do, Bora said firmly. You're our uncle now. You can't argue with that. The cubs climbed onto his bed carefully, mindful of his injuries. They sat with him, talking about everything that had happened since the rescue. They told him about the rescue ships that had risked everything to land in the storm, about how the pilots had called themselves crazy for trying, about how everyone said it was impossible but they did it anyway. Just like you, Hiram said. Everyone said it was impossible to survive the storm, but you did it anyway. I had help, Daewon said, looking at the three cubs. You three kept me warm too, remember? We survived together. Later, after the cubs and their families left, other visitors came. Scientists who wanted to study his survival techniques, military officers who wanted to learn his methods, news reporters who wanted to tell his story. Daewon found all the attention embarrassing. He tried to explain that he wasn't special. Any human would have done the same thing. But they didn't believe him. One scientist, an elderly alien with too many eyes, sat with him for a long time. Do you know what you've done? The scientist asked. Kept 3 kids alive? More than that. You've changed how the galaxy thinks about humans. Before we thought you were just another species. Smart, yes. Tool users, yes. But fundamentally similar to us, and now we understand you're different. You have something we don't. A capacity for self-sacrifice on behalf of non-kin. An ability to bond with anyone, even aliens. A stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The scientist leaned forward. Do you know what we call species like this in xenobiology? No, we call them dangerous. Because a species that refuses to give up, that protects anyone they consider part of their group, that keeps trying when logic says to stop. The scientist paused. That's a species that will never be truly conquered, never be truly stopped. Daewon thought about this. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? For the galaxy? Probably good. We need people who don't give up, who help others even when it's hard. The scientist smiled with too many mouths. But for anyone who ever becomes humanity's enemy? Very bad. A month later, Daewon was cleared to return to Earth. The medical staff said he had recovered remarkably well. His hands had healed with only minor scarring. His body had bounced back from the hypothermia. Humans were tough, the doctors said, more resilient than they'd expected. Before he left, the cubs came to say goodbye. They brought their families. They brought friends. They brought gifts. Bora presented him with a data pad. This has all our contact information. And a promise. When we're old enough, we're going to visit Earth. We want to see where humans come from. I'd like that, Daewon said. Hiram gave him a photo. It showed all 3 cubs together, healthy and happy, holding a sign. The sign was written in 3 languages. He could read the Korean, "Thank you, Uncle Daewon." Taeyang didn't have a gift. He just hugged Daewon tightly and whispered, I love you. Daewon felt tears in his eyes. I love you too, little one. On the transport ship back to Earth, Daewon learned that his story had spread far beyond the medical station. News of the human who saved alien cubs had reached hundreds of worlds. He was being called a hero, a symbol of humanity's best qualities. But Daewon didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. Nothing more. He looked at the photo Hiram had given him. 3 small faces, alive and happy because one human had refused to leave them behind. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was what being human meant. Not being perfect. Not being invincible. Just being there when someone needed you. Refusing to quit when things got hard. Protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy could call it pack bonding or self-sacrifice or stubbornness. Daewon just called it being human. And as he looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past, heading home to Earth, he knew he would do it all again. Every freezing moment, every exhausting hour, Every difficult choice because that's what humans did. They stayed. Daewon woke up to someone shaking his shoulder. His eyes opened slowly. Everything hurt. His muscles ached from the cold. His head pounded. For a moment he couldn't remember where he was. Then he saw Bora's worried face looking down at him. "Uncle Daewon, wake up! Something's wrong with the heaters." He forced himself to sit up. The shelter was colder than it should be. He checked the chemical heaters. 2 of them had stopped working. The reactions had burned out faster than he'd calculated. The 3rd heater was barely producing any warmth. How long had he slept? He checked his watch. 4 hours. It felt like minutes. "It's okay," he told Bora, though it wasn't okay. "I'll fix it." But when he tried to stand, his legs wouldn't support him properly. He stumbled and caught himself on the wall. His body was shutting down from exhaustion and cold. He had pushed too hard for too long. The cubs watched him with frightened eyes. They could see something was wrong. Daewon checked the remaining chemical supplies. He had enough to make 1 more heater. Maybe 2 if he was careful. But that would only last another day at most. After that, they would have nothing. He looked at the cubs shivering in their huddle. Taeyang's lips were turning blue. Hirim's fur had lost all its shine. Bora's scales were completely colorless, a sign her body was struggling to function. They were dying slowly, and there was nothing more he could do with the resources he had. Daewon made the hardest decision of his life. He started taking off his thermal clothing, the outer layers that kept him warm, the insulated jacket, the thermal underlayers. "What are you doing?" Hirim asked in alarm. "You 3 need these more than I do," Daewon said. His voice was calm, but his hands shook as he removed his clothing. "No," Bora shouted. "You'll freeze." "You'll freeze first," Daewon said simply. "You're smaller. Your bodies can't handle this cold as well as mine can." It wasn't entirely true. Humans weren't particularly cold resistant. But human adults were bigger and had more body mass than the small cubs. He would last longer than they would. That was all that mattered. He wrapped his thermal jacket around Taeyang. He gave his insulated pants to Hirim. His underlayers went to Bora. Now he wore only his basic clothing, not nearly enough for the cold. Then he gathered all 3 cubs in his arms and pulled them against his body. Skin to fur, skin to scales. He would use his own body heat to keep them warm. It was the only resource he had left to give. The cold bit into him immediately. Without his protective clothing, the temperature felt like knives against his skin. He started shivering violently within minutes. Bora understood what he was doing. She pushed against him, trying to get away. "Stop, this is wrong. You're killing yourself." "I'm keeping you alive," Daewon said through chattering teeth. "That's what matters. Why?" Bora demanded. Tears ran down her face. "Why are you doing this? We're not your family. We're not even your species. Why won't you save yourself?" Daewon was quiet for a moment. He thought about how to explain something that was so natural to him but so foreign to her. "On Earth," he finally said, "humans live in groups. We take care of each other. We protect the weak. We help the young. It's how we survived when we were just simple animals with no claws and no thick fur. But we're not humans," Bora said. "Doesn't matter," Daewon replied. "You needed help. I was here, so I help. That's what humans do." "That's stupid," Hirim said, crying too. "You should save yourself." Daewon smiled, though his lips were turning blue. "Yeah, probably. Humans do a lot of stupid things. But we also do a lot of brave things. Sometimes those are the same thing." Taeyang had been quiet this whole time. Now he spoke in a tiny voice. "I don't want you to die." "I don't plan to," Daewon assured him. "I'm just sharing my warmth. We're family now, right? Family shares." He held the 3 cubs tighter, giving them every bit of heat his body could produce. His core temperature began dropping. His shivering became worse. His thinking grew fuzzy and slow. Time became strange. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like minutes. Daewon drifted in and out of consciousness. He kept the cubs close even when he couldn't remember why. Some instinct deeper than thought told him to hold on, to not let go. The cubs talked to him, trying to keep him awake. They told him stories about their homeworlds. They asked him questions about Earth. They promised they would visit him there someday when this was over. Daewon tried to respond, but words were becoming hard. His body was shutting down, redirecting all remaining energy to his core organs. Hypothermia was setting in seriously now. Taeyang suddenly moved. He took his stuffed animal, the one he had clutched through all of this, and pressed it into Day-One's hands. "Here," the little cub said. "This always makes me feel better when I'm scared. Maybe it will help you too." Day-One looked down at the worn stuffed toy. This small alien child who was terrified and cold and missing his parents was giving away his only comfort to make Day-One feel better. "Thank you," Day-One whispered. He held the stuffed animal carefully. "I'll keep it safe." More time passed. Day-One's consciousness faded further. The cold was everywhere now. He couldn't feel his fingers or toes. His shivering had stopped, which was bad. When the body stopped shivering, it meant it was giving up. He thought about his family on Earth. His mother would be sad when she heard what happened. His friends would say he died doing something brave. But Day-One didn't feel brave. He just felt cold and tired. The cubs felt warm against him, though. That was good. As long as they were warm, he had succeeded. That was all that mattered. His eyes closed. He couldn't open them again. Then, through the fog of his dying consciousness, he heard something. A sound that didn't belong. A deep rumbling. Growing louder, HFY heard it too. "What is that?" The rumbling grew into a roar. The shelter shook. Lights flashed outside, bright enough to see through the walls. "Ships!" Bora shouted. "There are ships outside." Day-One tried to focus, but he couldn't. His mind was too far gone. He felt the cubs pull away from him, felt cold air rush in where their warmth had been. He heard them shouting, but the words didn't make sense. Then new sounds. Banging, metal screeching, voices calling out in different languages. The shelter's walls came down. Bright lights blinded everyone. Strange figures in thermal suits rushed in. "We found them," someone shouted. 4 life signs. 3 cubs and 1 human. "The human's in bad shape," another voice said. "Core temperature is 28 degrees. Get a thermal pod here now." Hands lifted. Day-One. He felt himself being moved. He tried to hold on to Tai Yang's stuffed animal, but his fingers wouldn't work. "Sir, you need to let go of the toy," a voice said gently. "No," Day-One managed to whisper. "Promise. Return it." "Okay, we promise. Now let us help you." Warmth surrounded him suddenly. A thermal pod. Medical equipment. Voices talking rapidly about treatment procedures. The last thing Day-One heard before consciousness left him completely was HFY's voice, crying but alive. "Thank you, Uncle Day-One. Thank you for not leaving us." Then darkness took him and he knew nothing more. But he was smiling. Because the cubs were safe. The rescue had come. He had kept his promise. He had kept them alive through the storm. The wind screamed across the frozen surface of Veraxis 9 like a living thing. Day-One stood outside Research Station Theta 7, checking the atmospheric sensors for the 3rd time that morning. Something felt wrong. The readings on his handheld device kept jumping between normal and dangerous levels. He looked up at the sky. Dark purple clouds swirled overhead, moving faster than they should. The electromagnetic readings were going crazy. Day-One had studied extreme weather patterns during his training on Earth, and every instinct told him a big storm was coming. "Station Commander, this is Day-One." He spoke into his radio. "I think we have a problem. The electromagnetic readings are unstable." The commander's voice crackled back. "We see the same data you do, Day-One." "The computer says it's just normal fluctuations. Come back inside." Day-One wanted to argue, but he was the youngest researcher on the station. Nobody listened to his concerns seriously. He walked back through the airlock, shaking ice crystals from his thermal suit. Inside the station, life continued as normal. Scientists from 5 different alien species worked at their stations, studying samples and recording data. In the corner of the main laboratory, 3 young aliens were visiting today. Their parents worked at the station, and sometimes they brought their children to see where they worked. Day-One noticed the 3 cubs playing near the sample storage area. The oldest was a Catharian girl named Bora. Her scales were bright blue and green, showing she was healthy and happy. She was explaining something to the 2 younger Vrin cubs, showing them a holographic display. The Vrin cubs were brother and sister. HFY, the older one, watched everything with wide, curious eyes. Her thick fur was silver white, and she asked questions about everything she saw. Her younger brother, Tai Yang, stayed close to her side. He clutched a small stuffed animal that looked like some creature from their homeworld. "Day-One," HFY called out when she saw him. "Is it true that Earth has water that falls from the sky?" He smiled despite his worry about the storm. "Yes, we call it rain, and sometimes frozen water falls too. We call that snow. That sounds cold, Tae-yang said quietly, hugging his stuffed animal tighter. It can be, Daewon admitted, but humans learn to survive in the cold. We're pretty good at it, Bo-Ra tilted her head. Why would anyone want to live in cold places? Before Daewon could answer, the lights flickered. Then they flickered again. Suddenly, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights began flashing. The station commander's voice came over the speakers. Attention all personnel. We have a major electromagnetic storm approaching. It's much larger than predicted. All staff report to evacuation stations immediately. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted in the laboratory. Scientists rushed to save their data and grab emergency supplies. The three cubs looked around in confusion and fear. Mom? Hiram called out. Dad? Daewon saw the cubs' parents across the room, already moving toward the evacuation corridor. They were shouting something, but the alarms were too loud. The crowd of evacuating personnel pushed between them and their children. Stay here, Daewon told the cubs. I'll get your parents. He tried to push through the crowd, but more alarms started ringing. The lights went completely dark for a moment. Then emergency lighting kicked in. The main reactor was shutting down. The backup power systems engaged with a deep humming sound. Daewon fought his way to where he had seen the parents, but they were gone. He ran to the evacuation corridor. Through the window, he could see the first evacuation shuttle already being loaded. The cubs' parents were being pushed aboard by security personnel. He slammed his hand against the window. Wait, the cubs. Your children. But nobody could hear him over the alarms and the rushing crowd. The adults were in full panic mode, following evacuation procedures. The parents must have thought their children were already on a shuttle. The airlock sealed. Through the window, Daewon watched the shuttle detach and disappear into the purple storm. His heart sank. He ran back to the laboratory. The three cubs were exactly where he had left them, huddled together in fear. Tears ran down Hiram's face. Tae-yang was crying too, calling for his mother. Even Bo-Ra, who tried to stay brave, looked terrified. It's okay, Daewon said, trying to sound calm. We'll catch the next shuttle. He grabbed emergency thermal blankets and wrapped them around the cubs. Then he picked up Tae-yang, who was the smallest. Come on, we need to move fast. They ran through the corridors toward the landing pad. The station shook as the storm hit with full force. The walls groaned under the pressure of the wind. Temperature displays showed the outside temperature dropping fast. -60°C, -70, -80. Through the corridor windows, Daewon could see the last evacuation shuttle on the landing pad. Its engines were already warming up. He ran faster, pulling Hiram and Bo-Ra along while carrying Tae-yang. They reached the exterior airlock. Daewon could see the shuttle through the small window. He pressed the emergency release and the door began to open. Cold air blasted into the corridor, so cold it hurt to breathe. Come on, he shouted. They stumbled out into the storm. The wind nearly knocked them over. Snow and ice pelted them like tiny knives. Daewon couldn't see more than a few meters ahead. He pushed forward, following the lights of the shuttle, but the shuttle was moving. Its engines grew louder. The landing gear began to retract. Wait, Daewon screamed, waving his arm. Stop, we're here. The shuttle lifted off. Its engines blasted hot air and melted snow across the landing pad. Daewon stood there, still holding Tae-yang, with the two other cubs clinging to his legs. They all watched as the shuttle rose into the purple sky and vanished into the storm. The wind howled around them. The temperature display on the landing pad showed -90°C and dropping. The station behind them was already starting to freeze. Ice formed on the windows. The backup power would only last 2 days at most. Daewon looked down at the three small faces staring up at him. They were alone on a frozen planet in the middle of the worst storm in the planet's recorded history. No communication, no way to call for help. The cubs would die from the cold within hours if he didn't do something. He took a deep breath of the freezing air. His military survival training kicked in. First priority, get back inside and get warm. Second priority, assess resources. Third priority, find a way to survive until rescue came. Okay, he said to the cubs, forcing his voice to sound confident. New plan. We're going back inside and we're going to wait out this storm together. I promise you I will keep you safe. Tae-yang looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. Are you sure? Daewon nodded. I'm sure. Humans are very good at not giving up. They turned and walked back toward the station entrance, leaning into the wind. Behind them, the storm continued to grow stronger and the temperature continued to fall. The station was dying. Daewon could feel it in the way the walls creaked and groaned. The heating system was failing. Frost formed on the metal surfaces inside the corridors. His breath came out in white clouds. The three cubs followed him through the dark hallways. Their emergency thermal blankets dragged on the floor behind them. Taeyang was still crying softly. Hiram held his hand, trying to be brave for her little brother. Bora walked in silence, her scales turning pale from the cold. Daewon led them back to the main laboratory. It was the largest room in the station with the most equipment. If they were going to survive, this was the place to do it. He sealed the laboratory doors behind them. Then he went around the room, sealing all the ventilation ducts and windows with emergency sealant. Every crack that let cold air in had to be blocked. "Why are you doing that?" Bora asked. "Won't we run out of air?" "There's enough air in this room for days," Daewon explained. "But heat escapes fast. We need to trap every bit of warmth we can." He looked around the laboratory, thinking fast. The backup power was draining quickly because it was trying to heat the entire station. That was wasteful. He needed to think smaller. Daewon started pulling furniture away from the walls. He dragged laboratory tables to the center of the room. He stacked chairs and equipment containers to create walls. The cubs watched in confusion. "What are you making?" Hiram asked. "A shelter inside the shelter," Daewon said. "We can't heat this whole big room, so we make a small space inside it. Easier to keep warm." He grabbed the thermal insulation panels from the walls. These panels were expensive and important for the station's systems. Breaking them off was against every safety rule. But rules didn't matter anymore. Survival mattered. Bora's eyes went wide. "You're destroying station property." "That's against regulations?" Daewon laughed, though it wasn't a happy laugh. "Rules are for normal situations, Bora. This isn't normal." He showed her how to help layer the insulation panels to create walls for their small shelter. Hiram and Taeyang helped too, carrying smaller pieces. Working together kept them moving, and moving kept them warm. Next came the hardest part. They needed heat. The backup power was almost gone. Soon there would be no electricity at all. Daewon looked around the laboratory for anything that could burn. He started with wooden crates from the storage area, then paper files. Then he looked at the laboratory furniture. Beautiful, expensive tables made from wood imported from other planets. He picked up a chair and smashed it against the floor. The legs broke off. "Why are you breaking things?" Taeyang asked, his eyes wide with shock. "Because staying warm is more important than chairs," Daewon said simply. He piled the broken wood in the emergency heating unit. The unit was designed to burn solid fuel in case of power failure. It wasn't very efficient, but it would work. He lit the fire using chemical igniters from the emergency supplies. Flames grew in the heating unit. Warmth spread through their small shelter. The cubs moved closer to the fire, holding out their hands. For the first time since the evacuation, they looked a little less scared. But Daewon knew the fire would only last a few hours. Then they would need more fuel. He looked around the laboratory and saw months of research, expensive equipment, irreplaceable samples. By morning, most of it would be firewood. The cubs needed to eat. Daewon checked the laboratory's emergency food supplies. Most of it was designed for adult researchers. The nutritional requirements were all wrong for young aliens. Frin cubs needed lots of protein. Ctharians needed specific minerals. He sat down at a still-working computer terminal and pulled up the xenobiology database. He studied the cubs' biological needs, then looked at what food was available. It took him an hour, but he figured out how to break down the adult food into base nutrients and recombine them into something the cubs could eat. The process required laboratory equipment and precise measurements. It was slow and tiring work, but Daewon didn't complain. He just did it. While the food processed, he sat with the cubs in their small shelter. The fire crackled. Outside their insulated walls, the laboratory was freezing. Outside the station, the storm raged. "Tell us about Earth," Hiram said suddenly. "You said humans are good at surviving. Tell us how." Daewon thought about it. Then he started telling them stories. He told them about the early humans who survived ice ages with nothing but animal skins and fire. He told them about explorers who crossed frozen mountains and sailed through icy seas. He told them about scientists who lived in Antarctica, Earth's frozen south, studying the ice. "Humans live in cold places on purpose?" Bora asked in disbelief. "Some do," Daewon said. "We're curious. We go places even when they're dangerous or uncomfortable. We want to know what's there. That sounds stupid, Hiram said. Day-One smiled. Maybe, but it's also how we learn, how we grow stronger. Tae-Yang had been quiet for a long time. Now he spoke in a small voice. Are we going to die? The question hung in the air. Day-One looked at the three small faces watching him. He could lie and say everything would be fine. He could tell the truth and say their situation was desperate. Instead, he said, Not if I can help it. And I'm very good at helping it. How do you know? Tae-Yang asked. Because I'm human, Day-One said. And humans have this problem where we don't know when to quit. Even when things look impossible, we keep trying. It's kind of our thing. Is that magic? Hiram asked. Day-One laughed. No, it's just stubbornness. We're too dumb to know when we're beaten, so we keep fighting. He gave them the food he had prepared. It didn't taste great, but it had the nutrients they needed. They ate slowly, still shivering despite the fire. After they ate, the cubs grew sleepy. The warmth and food made them tired. Day-One arranged their thermal blankets into sleeping spots near the fire. All three cubs curled up together, sharing body heat like their instincts told them to do. Will you sleep too? Bora asked. Later, Day-One said. Someone needs to keep the fire going. But you're tired, she observed. I can sleep when you're safe, he told her. Right now you need me awake. Bora didn't understand this logic. In her species, everyone took care of themselves first, but she was too tired to argue. She closed her eyes and fell asleep. Day-One sat by the fire feeding it pieces of broken furniture. He monitored the cubs' vital signs using a medical scanner. Their body temperatures were stable for now. But if the fire went out, they would start dying within hours. He checked his own status. He had been awake for 20 hours. His body ached from the cold and exhaustion. His hands were raw from breaking apart furniture and sealing the room. But none of that mattered. 3 children depended on him. So he would stay awake. He would keep the fire burning. He would keep them alive. Outside, the storm howled louder. The temperature dropped to minus 95 degrees. Inside their small shelter, 3 alien cubs slept peacefully, trusting a human they barely knew to keep them safe. Day-One watched them sleep and made a promise to himself. No matter what happened, no matter how hard it got, he would not let them down. Humans didn't abandon those who needed them, even if those who needed them weren't human at all.